fucking had enough of it. It was some insane shit going on, that not all breeders are actually good at raising fish.
That's significant, isn't it?
Japanese fuck around with the pictures too much. In this case, that's a huge amount of money. I just know them guys deliver phenomenal Azakari experience.
I mean, certainly that farm quality, like you say, is unbelievable. It
Cost over £40,000 each.
only bet what you could afford to lose.
I don't give a fuck what anybody says about anything else. Yeah, I forgive all them muppets. I don't feel like I've got out to prove.
Welcome everyone to another podcast session with myself, Chris Wall, and Ricky Stoddart.
Now they're on.
So let's start with football.
Obviously.
What a result you boys had against Liverpool.
I weren't expecting any other, to be fair.
Right.
Team of our stature.
Is that why you didn't go to the game?
No. I helped someone out. Someone done me some favours.
Fair play. What a game, though.
Big currency United tickets, mate.
Oh, yeah.
No one could have fought Gooners ones.
Oh, yeah. Less said about that, mate. But
the analogy went down well, though.
Yeah, the analogy sort of went down well with everyone that wasn't an Arsenal fan. I think it offended quite a lot of Arsenal fans. But yeah, it's a good thing I got broad shoulders, mate, because lesser men might have taken offence to that. So, but there we go. Yeah, I'm sure I'll find a United analogy come the end of the season.
Struggle, mate. They just don't know what to throw at us.
Something about a leaky roof or something like that. I'll find something.
Yeah.
But Koi, busy time of year. Although I say busy time of year, when's it not a busy time of year?
I know, I fucking had enough of it.
It's just like a revolving door, isn't it? Like, obviously, I know you're heading out to Japan in the very near future as well. Shipments coming in left, right, and centre.
Escape, by the way.
Yeah, no, I'm not surprised. Yeah, go from one fish
Don't tell
house.
the wife, no business, just to escape.
Yeah, I'm sure she don't listen to this, mate.
God, she does actually.
Really?
Avid listener.
Wow.
No, question time. She's a very loyal question time follower.
Right, fair enough.
And she likes to make sure she tells me when I've been making silly noises or done something wrong.
Yeah, fair enough. But Koi-wise, if we sort of have a bit of a catch-up, Wakagoi show.
Yeah, I love that show.
You said quite a few times to me about it, like the standard and just the vibe of the show.
I don't know what it is. I've just had so much success. That's probably why I love it. Well, yeah, I think in 2016 I had that was my first proper stab at any Japanese show. And as you can imagine, I bought like a small army of fish to go into it. And I had some mega results. I was shocked because it was a completely different way of looking at fish for me. My whole sort of ethos has been selecting young fish that will become very good over time. So all of a sudden when you're looking at fish to compete and at a Japanese circuit, not anywhere else, it's a different way of looking at them. So shrunk down to them kind of sizes as well. So I just remember the shock the next day. I've got a first shot, I bagged a Kakugyo prize, Sabaki prize, all of first prizes as well. I was shocked, and kind of gone on since then. Miyabi prize last year, year before, Dainichi Koako, and Sakura prize this year again.
Yeah, Ginrin Mariyama Kahaku. Yeah, stunning fish, mate. That was very, very much show-worthy fish. So. Yeah. But the general standards, I think even we had quite a few placements, which, perhaps in the UK it's kind of like I got a third, but on this standard and this stage, it's pretty serious stuff.
I say it all the time, to get a third at any Japanese court, one of them top 3 shows is a phenomenal result, because there are no shit fish in these classes, and there's not just, nobody wins by default. The classes are generally always packed out pretty well. So if you're bagging any prize there, well done.
And I think from the customers that sort of entered fish under sort of our umbrella, they weren't crazy sums of money. I mean, I think the Goshki was about 400 or 500 quid, I think, something like that. Took the Taniguchi one.
Yeah.
I think, that's pretty good.
It can be done.
That's what I'm getting at.
I've won good awards with fish that didn't cost the earth before. Timing can be a lot, and where you get them from. I've done well when I've managed to bag a little thing at some of the farms in the past, which, everyone, koi show fish always stand out. So you're always going to pay a premium for them versus something that's not deemed worthy enough for the show. But yeah, I've had NND first prizes in the past. I still remember it now. Kajaku, the minute he showed me it, it literally said in front of me that'll win a first prize. I was that confident, and it did. And then Shearer Utsuri one year at their place, same thing again. It just looked that strong. That's going to take a hell of a fish to beat that. And yeah, sure enough, that bagged a first as well. So and they weren't crazy.
Sort of timing buying the fish and then timing with the condition of the fish, it all has to sort of marry up, doesn't it? So
you can get bits where like if you're in the auctions, that can be. And that, interestingly, with this Mariama one, didn't have a lot of attention on it.
Wow.
Yeah. There was a lot of them in there, and I went for that one because it's structure. So bearing in mind, a lot of these smaller fish are judged through vinyl bags, so they've really got to kind of stand out, and they're all lined up next to each other, and in his body had a real strong presence. Never mind everything else. Technically strong pattern, but yeah, still not cheap. Obviously, it's Mariama. Ginrin Kohaku, but compared to what some of the other stuff went for, absolutely, there's some insane shit going on. But yeah, happy days with that one.
Yeah, sound. So junior, international junior
next,
which is a pretty significant one as well. Obviously, younger fish.
Yeah, and that's the big three done then, and it's on to breeding season pretty much.
Yeah, and kind of brings on to our topic of today's session, which is Azakari koi, leaving koi in Japan to grow versus, if we can dub it, UK Azakari. Basically what you're doing up at the farm.
Yep.
Perhaps gone a little bit under the radar. In my opinion, probably underestimated the results that can be achieved. Pains me to blow smoke up your backside, but I have seen the messages from breeders that have sent to you after you've sort of sent back the images of towsai that you've raised, and they've kind of gone, when I read the text, I'm doing it in their voice as well. So you sort of, you have to, it's kind of like, whoa, no, that can't be right. So we'll move on to that in a bit, but for those that are perhaps interested or a bit unfamiliar with the whole Azakari process, where do we start with that? So we've selected a fish in Japan, for example, or bought it through the auction or anything like that, and essentially it's put in the mud pond, or traditionally put in the mud pond to raise. What the do's and don'ts, what's the advice, where do we go from this point?
So I think the big thing here is to understand that not all breeders are actually good at raising fish.
Yeah.
That is really, really important. A lot are farmers. This is their crop. They know how to do it, kind of taking it so far, but not every one of them is exceptional at raising fish, and a lot of it can be a lot of luck involved, i.e., the weather that year, literally, and stuff like that. So that is hugely important to understand, because some breeders literally they don't raise particularly indoors their tatigoi. They just keep them separated, slightly lower stocking level probably than other stock ponds, and they get released into the typical scenario here. They'll probably be like 18 to 22 cm as towsai going into a mud pond, probably come out anywhere from kind of 35 up to 45 cm. That's a typical farm scenario there, probably average it at 40. And there's a lot of farms like that, but yeah, you're not guaranteed you'll get that size, but they're not looking to push these exceptionally big, not like the breeders who are then more skilled at raising jumbo towsai and beyond. You're going to get different results. There's different levels of care as well. I've seen this behind the scenes, not just you're in a breeder's facility. I've seen in summer when I've been there working on mud pond complexes where there's multiple breeders. And, when I've been with NND, just seeing the level of care they put into every pond is just phenomenal. Really. Some of the things I've done while I've been out there, I spent a day, it was in August, hottest year, I think I was 16, fully clothed, fully waded up, and in mountains. It was blistering, 40 degrees. I'm not looking for sympathy here, by the way, because it was dreamy.
You're not getting it.
No. But it was, I was netting blanket weed out of a pond. A whole mud pond with a net, just walking around netting it up onto banking before it was medicated. I spent time with Fujo catching tadpoles with a plastic container out of a pond because obviously he noticed that they'd appeared, wanted to get them out before they obviously became any more, which then can seriously affect that mud pond. And then, this same one complex I was working on, another real, at that time, top-level breeder. And once I'd been taught things about watercolour management, how everything should look, and then saw how these other ponds look, I could see why I wouldn't expect any good results to come out of it. Plantation on the top straight away there, affecting light, affecting oxygen.
Yep.
In these fairly small ponds. And when all this stuff isn't managed, the outcome isn't going to be great. So you've got all these factors to it. Some farms get absolutely swamped with Azakari fish. As much as I love the bloke, Taniguchi seems to be one of these scenarios. Results can just be hit and miss, unless you're very, very vocal about how you want it to be raised. Because he can do indoor raising, he can do outdoor raising. Generally, if it's indoor raising, you might get very different results because, again, all comes down to stocking, then which pond he uses. And mud ponds can be hit and miss, but the guy has, most times I ask him, there's over 1,000 Azakari fish.
Yeah, that's significant, isn't it?
Fucking colossal. It's colossal. So, there's a lot to take on board. It's not. I think the kind of perception is you buy a fish, you leave it in Japan, you put it in one of these miracle mud ponds, and it'll come out fantastic.
Yeah.
If that's your expectation, please don't do it.
Well, that's one of the points to discuss is managing expectations. We sort of use that phrase quite a lot because we do it as well. It's the toe-side dream. We've said it 1,000 times. Like, it's that sort of finding something that you see, you've got a vision for, and it coming to fruition. But it doesn't always work out like that. So for those scenarios where you succeed, there's always going to be scenarios where you don't succeed, and perhaps if that's your first outing with an Azakari fish and it doesn't pan out, doesn't leave a very good taste in the mouth. Obviously higher risk with tosai, things going wrong, body development, pigment development, etc. Bigger money, less risk with older fish. And then you get into that seesaw sort of, well, what's the right choice?
I'm glad you've just said that, because paying more does not guarantee success. Not in the slightest, especially not with tosai. All that guarantees more success is your eye and your knowledge, or the eye and knowledge of the person who's selling you the fish, and whether you trust that or not. What track record have they got? That's probably one to draw up, because I see this too much. Tosai are phenomenal things. With all the experience I've got in doing it, there's still plenty that catch me out, where you just think that's going to be plain sailing, and then as you say, it grows, and then its body just twists a little bit, and game over. And there's such subtleties you can see. There's actually right now, there's a breeder's auction coming up, and there's a fish in there that I've seen that I think is going to be quite a hot fish in the auction. And I talk of the subtleties, right? We're buying off a picture and a video. Japanese fuck around with the pictures too much, does my head in. So watching the video, it's just something's not right for me. I'm watching this video and it jolts my spidey sense. So then it's like, right, now what has jolted that? What's going off here? And for me, this is something, but these are the things I'm talking about in tosai that are hard to see. This is minute, right? And it's coming down to the pecs. There's something not right between two pecs. And the first detail I can see is that the front ray, one curves, got the nice usual curve from the knuckle. The other one curves inwards slightly. Now, right now, that is so subtle that I believe most people won't see that at all. And it could be perfectly all right. The money we're probably going to be talking for this fish is going to be substantial. And there's a very, very high chance now things like this just play out and become bolder and bigger the bigger the fish gets. There might even be a slight differential in size between the two pecs. It's hard to see, but all I know, and this is in as well, you can often see that the bone structure within the pec, the way the bones are lined up, I do know there's just something not right on this one side. But I don't think people are going to see it, and people are still going to bid like crazy for that.
Because it's got the rest.
Yeah, I can also see the body line. I'm like, it could go wrong. But it's so blindingly good, this fish, to look at.
People look past it.
Completely past it. And in a tosai, like I say, but there's a horrible chance it's just going to play out horribly well at Nisai. Your problem there is, again, people don't see that. That's a fish I believe will probably end up retail value £5,000-6,000, maybe more.
Yeah.
In this case, that's a huge amount of money. Just not worth taking the risk.
So we talk about risks associated with it. It might seem to someone that's sort of not kept fish out in Japan before, it might seem absolutely mental concept to go, what, you take a fish, you put it out there, you sort of obviously each farm deals differently, and I guess it's good to be clear what the terms of engagement are, I guess, before you sort of put a fish out in the mud
really
pond.
Important. The biggest thing for me is you've got to know the breeder, and what their fish are capable of doing and what they're actually capable of doing with their fish. I've got a phenomenal one here which actually ties into all this quite well. So again, just a few of the good ones. The one, just in case I forget my thread, Kansuke is what I want to come back to. But you've got guys like NND. I just know them guys deliver phenomenal Azakari experience because their whole ethos is making the customer happy. All they're interested about. That to them, leaving that fish there, they provide pictures generally when it's released. They try and engage people in the harvests. It's a phenomenal, great experience for people, and they work their arse off to deliver the best results. Even when all the conditions are against them, they work their arse off for it. So I have the utmost confidence there in anybody leaving fish at NND. The guys do a phenomenal job at it. I actually think it's one of the reasons, I've said this for years now, something about their brand doesn't resonate that well with koi keepers outside of Japan. Yeah. But everybody who goes to Japan and visits NND, it's always a highlight of the trip. The guys are fucking brilliant at what they do as that whole package. And I think that's possibly where a bit of the mismatch comes in. But like I said there, Taniguchi can be a little bit hit and miss. When he gets it right, you've seen me Battleship Sankey that come back. I mean, 4-year-old, 75 cm, body bigger than a submarine, really. I can't know how to describe that body, but it's...
similar body shape to me, I think.
Yeah, beastly then.
Powerful.
Beastly. So, but then others, because what you've got to watch as well, even down to like Narita Koi Farm, this is where your management's important. There's no questioning that guy's ability to raise fish. But if you don't communicate, sometimes you might buy Tosai that he deems himself better to raise as Chibi Nisai. Yeah, and he will just go off and do that. So you've bought a fish at 20 cm expecting it to be 45 cm or 50, whatever, and you get it and it's 25 cm or 30, whatever he's done, because he knows the best way to raise that fish is that way, to play it to its strengths. That's a different level of skill, but my first experience with it is when I dealt with an agent, I didn't know what the fuck were going off, so I leave all these fish, gets to October, I'm like, what the fuck? They're not done anything. But that was why. So communication's really important, and knowing how that operation works. Is it intense raising? Is it this raising? And knowing, play the fish to its strengths. Some breeders, again, who aren't particularly into that, might put a fish that you can't particularly jumbo raise or raise intensively in an environment where it is, and then you're not going to get the best out of that. That comes down, that setup at Narita is phenomenal because he's got so many different ponds, so much isolation going on. Separation he can create. It's easy to separate varieties, sizes, raise them this way, raise them that way. He's got the whole lot there. Most breeders in Niigata haven't got that, so you can't particularly play individual fish to their strengths.
Yeah, sure.
And then, like I say, I just know others. You've got simple farmers, or just simple breeders like Tanaka Kazuhiro, for example. Great guy, great fishy producers, but he just didn't. There's no intensive raising there. Would I leave a fish for Azakari? Not if I wanted to get the absolute most out of it, because that's one, they'll pop them in mud pond and let's see what happens, basically.
Yeah, sure.
That's kind of where we're at. They'll give them the care every day, the feeding, making sure they do what they can, but ultimately what happens. So you're not going to set anything alight there ultimately in the end.
Another thing...
So, the Kansuke bit.
Yeah, sorry, go on.
So this is where I'm really intrigued. Now, Kansuke's fascinated me for years because he's got Sakai blood. I do believe it's old Sakai blood, but still, some of his parent fish are fucking huge, 90 plus. His Tosai he never raises big. Tatigoi, we're talking 25 cm. He'll harvest in autumn. You'll be 20 to 25 Tatigoi Tosai, 35 up to 40-ish, 45 absolute top end as Nisai. Then all of a sudden, Sanzai comes. and these things just explode.
Yeah.
But explode, we're still talking 55 going on 60.
More in the body
tops.
style, yeah.
You know, at most farms these days, we're talking Nisai being that size. So it's like his fish are a year behind. Quality at the highest level.
Yeah.
Now, I've always questioned there what is going on here, because that's a very skillful breeder. This is the way he chooses to do it. You can debate about longevity for this as well, of quality. But, and we're going to prove this year, because I'm the only person with his Tosai landing this week, actually. I'm going to get a chance to raise them, and I'll be raising them intensively, because I seem to think, I'm curious, because people can then start thinking, oh, these fish don't really grow. If you get me? Because they're at the farm and they're looking at how he's doing it, and I just question, is it just his mentality to how he raises? I personally think looking at the fish, we can get more out of it. There's a slight variation, because this year is his new lineage that have come from 3 new Nietzsche parents, which are, when I say insane, they are fucking bonkers, these 3 new parent fish. He was like a kid at Christmas when I went in December. He's like, Rick, you need to come and have a look at these Tosai. And he lifted the lid up and went, yeah, I'll have them all. Done. So, that's the only kind of differentiator in it. But I seem to think I will get more out of them than he does.
The genetics are within the fish. Yes. It's just through the raising process.
Very, very curious.
Yeah. I mean, certainly that farm, sort of not a huge farm, but quality, like you say, is unbelievable. And the body structures on the sort of Sansai Yonsai, although sort of maybe not as big, they're not as big as, you know, Sakai Momotaro at the same age. Body structure looks as if it is of a much bigger fish. That impression when you look at the fish, that's something that I always is really important to me. It's that feeling that you get when you look at a fish. It's not something that you could quantify. It's not something that a judge in the UK is going to go, oh, that gives me. At
Sansai, at his place though, Nisai is very underwhelming.
Yeah,
very underwhelming, because basically you're looking at fish that at most farms are jumbo Tosai.
Yeah, so I guess that's the understanding and expectation.
Right. Those NND Kwaku I've raised are now bigger than most Kansuke Nisai.
We're going to get onto them. So that because that sort of.
But it will be a curious one. But again, just to end that part, the whole care thing. However, if you leave a koi at Kansuke, I know the likelihood of it even having a split peck is minimal, because that guy, you've seen it. I've never known anybody take so much care in netting. Very, very few people. He'll let me net fish up, but most people he won't even let put a net in his own pond. You know, and anaesthetic, when he's using that, he's one of the few guys I see who gets it out, puts it in a separate bucket, whisks it up before he adds it in where the fish is. Just utmost care. He treats them like his kids, or maybe even better. Who knows?
But I think it's what certain farms you were saying, like about the NND, fantastic facility, quality of the fish, amazing. Literally, you can't help but get your socks blown off when you go there. Not on the radar of perhaps the UK, maybe even Europe sort of thing. Is that an injustice to the farm? Is that just business? Is that the way things are done? Because you can't deny the quality.
I don't know what it is. I think it's just this mismatch of this. Don't get me wrong, they do phenomenally well. They've got strong business everywhere, you know, worldwide, big presence. But I just think I don't see them get the accolades of like Marido, Nogami.
Sure.
But that's the bracket of breeder that they are in.
Yeah.
You know, they're at that level. Maybe I'm over-egging it, I don't know, but I just don't feel like there's the same enthusiasm for, you know, I put them out versus, I've got Nogami Kohaku, for instance. And it's the guys, when you actually look at what they do, I know it's off topic, but I mean, really dominant in Shiros. You possibly say top 3 for Shiro Sori in Japan now.
Yeah,
you know,
and ever increasing.
Just beneath Omasako, you know, you'd question there whether it's probably Okawa or NND. NND is certainly producing more volume consistently, so I think they're mega close there. The Kohaku lineage, it's just bonkers. Sanki, Marusho Sanki, I mean, what can you say?
Unbelievable, yeah.
Fucking bonkers. So yeah, I don't know, it's off a bit, that one, but amazing farm. And if you are looking at an Azakari experience, I would put it top of your pile, just because the whole package together, will be an amazing one for you.
And it's a bit sort of counterintuitive that, say, like you look at Tosai, often there'll be an option of a replacement in the event of death or something like that. As the fish get older and your price goes up, the option of replacements start to disappear because, and I was trying to explain this to a client, those fish get fewer and fewer. So, and the money involved is higher and higher. So if you don't want to risk that, if you feel that it's not for you, it's not the same as gambling, but you know that old saying, only bet what you can afford to lose. Don't stick big money if you can't mitigate.
I'm not going to mention names in all this, but this is hands down right. When I was there back end of last year, some high-end stuff that I deal with, and there was 2 fish. The main focus of the trip ended up being replacement for 2 kohaku that both individually cost over £40,000 each, that both snuffed it. I say snuff it, one had snuffed it, one his body was crippled. You know, that's the reality. You don't escape these problems by spending more money. It's real. And like you say, the replacement bit becomes even more and more difficult then, because those 2 fish, certainly one of them on its own was just a fucking phenomenal beast. And there's always this, in this case, I think we were good because we worked hard and made sure the breeder put something substantial, but some breeders can duck and dive it a little bit.
Yeah, sure.
Got to be really careful, but I'm aware of that and I make them kind of have it a little bit. And in this case, we did kind of go beyond. I think got equal, if not better, quality replacements. But we were lucky. It doesn't always pan out like that.
That's the other thing as well. Sometimes that sort of good fish, when it dies, all of a sudden in the customer's head, it was a worldie. Exactly. And then any replacement after that point, it doesn't matter whether it's genuinely a better fish. It's always a lesser fish in their head.
Really tough old game with it. I think, as I say, we did well in this case, but it's frustrating as well, though, because, you know, these are journeys that we're on. The Azakari thing is a journey and a process, and it's important for the person, the breeder, dealer, whoever it is, to understand that, you know, it's the anticipation of, no matter what age you bought it at. These 2 fish I'm on about were Yonsai at the time of purchase, but even there we're looking and going, could be a Grand Champion contender 3 years from now.
Yeah, sure.
Well, it doesn't matter where you're at in that process, from Tosai or wherever it is, but when that journey is then wiped out within 12 months, it's quite demoralising.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Frustrating.
Well, I remember a scenario, Marusho Sankey going to one of the mud ponds up in the mountains a few years ago. Really nice Sankey, you might recall it. And towards the back end, sort of mid to end summer, problem with bears swiping the feeders. So
it's a real problem.
At the end of the day, I think they literally just went back to hand feeding a few times a day. It's physically and financially not viable to be there feeding all the time. Every time the feeder went out, literally like a Yogi the bear, the picnic basket got swiped. So that is a genuine problem. When the fish came out the mud ponds, they were...
So I can't get... I'm just looking at you and all I can see is Yogi Bear now. That could be used again, mate.
Is it the power and the
you
aggression?
Mentioned your picnic basket being swiped.
Yeah, right. We'll come back to that. I need to come up with some smarter sort of comebacks because I'm not very good at this on the spot sort of thing. Anyway, I'm quite powerful. Let's leave it at that. And the fish come out probably 5-6 centimeters undersized.
It had no body either, did it?
Yeah, but condition, wow, unbelievable.
Yeah.
Had to feed it back to the customer. Hit the roof.
I remember.
I mean, hit the roof. Why was I not giving up that? And it's hard to filter it back. So you've got this breeder who has dozens, if not hundreds, of mud ponds for the big breeders. They then need to give people updates throughout the year across the globe.
Man.
And then it needs to filter back down to the individual agents, then filter down to but he could not get over the fact that this is outrageous. Why was I not informed? That was a bit of a learning curve for me to engage with T's and C's.
Yeah, I mean, there we go. But I think this brings in the whole kind of mud pond, concrete pond debate really. I don't know if that was on your list, but
It is, yeah, moves nicely on.
it's the issue is mud ponds, right? When I first saw, and this is going back, I would have been 11, I think. There was an amazing old series by New Vision Videos, the Yamakoshi trilogy. I don't know if you ever watched it.
Yeah.
Fucking brilliant. That was my dream there laid out, And I painted this picture of these mud ponds being these magical things. My God, they put them in April, in October. They pull them out and look at them. Insane. So it gets to me being 16. And I go from my work experience out, and my God, the reality is so far from that. I don't doubt there's ponds out there that are a bit like that. The likes of Marihiro, Marasei, some guys have got ponds that big, you can do nothing with them. Just keeping the feeder filled up.
Yeah.
And so that honestly, these things are like lakes. But in the case of the general kind of size of mud ponds, like I say, netting out blanket weed, actually medicating fish in mud ponds. Using Mazaton, very potent, powerful stuff, but having to do it, obviously managing feeding levels, adjusting the watercolour, the desired watercolour for a lot of pond, again, depending on varieties. So, I'd done some NND, gone to quite a few breeders, Kaneko, very, very different there because he's got Shirotsuori, he's looking at Sumi a lot, keeping a very different watercolour, like a more browny looking water, which wouldn't have sufficed for, kind of ghost hanky raising. And then we get to Nogami, and I mean there I just saw, bearing in mind he's Dainichi Obikai, so his pedigree is insane. And I remember loading some bags up one day. I'm like, what's that? It's plant fertilizer. Okay, what we're doing with that? We need to make this pond a little bit greener. Fantastic. So let's power some plant fertilizer in there.
Just a load of nitrate and phosphate.
There's one for you.
Oh, I've done it now.
It was true. And that he wanted pea green because spirulina.
Yeah.
Obviously trying to culture that algae to really pop that benny and get that benny coming good.
And obviously in the mud ponds...
Fresh water getting in, very important.
Yeah, so some of the isolated areas.
All these things, the maintenance just around the mud ponds alone, because it wasn't like a glorified holiday for me. Fujo was like, you're going to learn everything we have to do. So some days I was just strimming. It weren't just come and do the culling. Which I think was my initial expectation.
Yeah, do all the cull bits.
You've got to keep it right, because otherwise then you're not getting access to these ponds come autumn.
But then that's reflected in, ultimately the price of the product as well, isn't it?
Yeah.
So this is sometimes when people go, I don't know, I don't even need to use breeders' names here, but say you got a Kahaku from farm A and Kahaku from farm B. Oh, they look quite similar. Why is this one more expensive? Well, there's a whole raft of variations, the cost of production, the longevity, everything that goes into it.
Ultimately, though, that outcome, if it's just mentality. If someone can't be asked to cut the grass around the pond, are they really going to be that arsed to do the rest? Really is a mentality thing, that, about small details, and every little small detail accumulating to the end result.
So the other thing with mud ponds is certain ponds aren't best for certain varieties.
Yeah.
I think we've spoken about it before, about certain more rocky based mud ponds being more suited to Showa from memory.
Yeah. The area of Uenuma is one renowned for Showa.
Yeah.
The more rocky ponds, and that's generally better for Sumi. I think that might tie down to light a little bit more, because again, on that list of variables, light is a massive one. If a pond it just catches the wrong side of a mountain, its light exposure over the course of a day is going to be limited.
Completely different, yeah.
The watercolour will affect that as well. There's just so many variables. Then you get the issue of what's the summer going to be like? We're not in control of this.
Yeah.
Remember, last year, prime example. And this is going to be a smooth leading into this concrete pond thing. Dainichi Toyota. So, phenomenal place, but I can't remember if it was Sansai or Yanzai. I had fish in both. Both of these ponds, used 2 ponds for it. One come out, they were long and skinny. They'd lost so much volume, but they got the length. The others come out like brick shit houses and looked phenomenal. Yeah, both phenomenal ponds of fish. Clear to me, it'd been a summer where it'd been very hot and water had been limited. That limited amount of fresh water means the pollution managing the pollution in the pond's difficult. The water level often drops through evaporation.
Yeah.
Therefore, as that drops, the capacity to feed goes down as well. So clearly these ponds had struggled and one had performed really well. That right there, that's just literally, depending on which your fish had gone in, they couldn't do anything about that. They will put no less care into either pond, but what can you do? That's nature then at that point. So I'm now happy. You know, there was one client, Kohaku, 44-year-old now, 75 cm from Kinsen lineage. I mean, what a fish. Hiroshi thinks it's probably the best Kohaku at his farm at the minute, potential-wise, at that kind of age group. So that's now being concrete raised this year, and I'm very happy about it. Because there's a couple of little things, obviously, throughout the process of harvesting, netting, whatever, tiny little scratches on couple of bits of the benny, which still all right at the minute, that'll recover. Concrete pond minimises that, because there's just less handling in general. But we're now in a situation, and I would say that fish was probably lacking volume a bit. It was powerful, but we could go probably, I reckon, 30-40% more on the volume. That will happen in the concrete pond this year, because at this point we take back control. Concrete pond raising, we've got control of that environment as much as possible. You know, depending on the equipment that you've got, it's game on.
So some breeders,
the biggest part of all this comes down to food. It's one of the biggest conversations when you talk to breeders about raising fish. It's not about water. It's not about soft water. It's not about this. It's not about that. Food. Feed maximum food. Can you feed maximum food when you basically doing it blindfolded? Yeah. They learn to read it. If you gave me a mud pond, the results would be far less than, because my experience of using mud ponds is I've never raised them on my own. But doing it in the blind, I know some of the techniques for managing the food, but I would more than likely, because I wouldn't want to overfeed it, I'd end up underfeeding it, erring on the side of caution. Well, I don't get to do that with a concrete pond because I can fix the problems very quickly.
Yeah, sure.
And see exactly what's going on, which is important when you want to feed max food.
So that does move on to sort of second part of the conversation. Some breeders, as you mentioned, are doing mud pond and indoor raising. Some breeders, a lot of the breeders in the Gata, I don't think it would probably ever be a thing. It's very much going to be mud pond orientated. And then probably as the next generation comes along, it might move more to solely concrete raising, seeing the advantages of it. You have got quite a track record of raising fish in concrete ponds, and we spoke earlier about, again, we come back to that farm again, but it's a good benchmark all the time, the Mauricio Sankey that you've been raising. So these are 10 months old, and
Or the Kohaku, you mean? N&D Kohaku.
Yeah, and the Sankey.
Yeah, there's a couple in there,
ridiculous.
Yeah, well, that's, again, I've had full control, so I've now got 10-month-old Kohaku, which people can see the video on the Koi Wholesale channel from when I selected these straight from the mud pond, did a deal in September, did the actual selection of them with my little lad Arthur in October, shipped them home, and I've been raising 40-ish fish in 1,200 gallons since then, and they are now average 40. I don't know where my top end sits. I think over 45 possibly, or around that, at 10 months old. And I mean, that is getting towards the top end of Japanese, and I mean elite breeders.
Yeah.
This is in your Momotaro, Sakai brackets and stuff like that. The body volume is, they're bursting. They're absolute brick shit houses. And that's been done in 1,200 gallons with 40-odd fish. Now, Fujo, we speak every other day pretty much, and I sent him an update, and his actual reply at the time was, "Are these the fish you selected in the mud pond?" He couldn't actually just make it out to begin with. Went, yeah. Then just followed a string of, "Oh my God" messages. And, because, oh my God, it's the big thing here is not doing it, because it's not easy to do, because getting the volume as well, I always speak about that. Getting length with koi is easy. Getting it with the volume and maintaining the quality, different game. But 1,200 gallons, to them it's basically around about a 6-ton pond. thereabouts. He
Yeah,
just couldn't
nothing,
process
yeah.
it. When I told him previously how many fish I was keeping, I got a lecture. Ricky, too many. You can't raise jumbo tosi with that stocking level or the rest of it. And at that point, it was kind of a weird one for me. I just had to say, just let me show you the results when it's done.
Thing is, like, well, a lot of like care and attention on the stocking side of things comes down to condition of the fish, like ripping fins and that sort of stuff. And it does happen, but on the whole, the success rate's pretty bloody good, mate. Like,
I've got a formula now.
yeah,
And this is what it's no thing. It's knowing per pond what I need to do with stocking levels. I know every element where I can improve as well. Oxygen management's a huge thing, which is going to be a costly solution, I think, in the end. But yeah, it's just there. What I've basically done over the years is took what I've learned from mud pond raising, all the little bits from all these different breeders, and muddled it all together into something now that I've been perfecting over a long time. But coming back to that mud pond thing, all that attention these guys raised, you cannot underestimate how much attention these things are given, and they need it because of the way that it's being done. But it's down to the smallest of details every day. That Benny's not looking great. They're growing, but they need a bit more body, and then it's just gradually building that feed up, making sure you don't take it too far. And if you're not observing this and seeing this visually, and not making the adjustments, you don't get the end results.
So we were talking to a customer. I won't mind us talking about it. About it's his dream to have a fish growing in the mud ponds in Japan. Quite a lot of romance around that whole, having that image of you've got this little gem that goes in the mud pond and it comes out and it's amazing. Versus going, well, it's going to go into a greenhouse. We're going to grow it in a concrete pot. But though I think that's technology, raising techniques, how modern day koi keeping is going to be moving.
Yeah, I mean, we've only got to look at the biggest of the breeders right now. Sakai, let's just go with Sakai. That's where we're at. More and more and more raising. They'll forever need mud ponds because it's a vast amount of capacity they've got. So you're not going to see the days where they're raising fry. But even places like Sakai, they don't raise them as long in fry ponds before they've got them whipped out and indoors because they're safer when they're there.
Yeah, but look at that. These fish that are coming back this week, sort of 12, 14 cm. It's nuts.
Fry ponds are very shallow in Japan, so just silly little things. I'm there this August, when my work experience, and there was heavy rain forecast. Actually, it come over. Just the clouds sort of changed everything. He was like, right, drop everything. We need to get back to the fish house. I'm like, whoa, what's going on here? Load up with crushed oyster shell. Waders on, out into mud ponds, just spreading crushed oyster shell in because the acid rain can just fuck the pH that quickly that fry wiped out en masse. Mud ponds, they're no fun. They're a cheap and vast expanse of water, basically. They've got the benefits. Obviously, being able to give big fish and whatever it is, one fish, tens of thousands of gallons of water potentially over a summer, all that natural food. There are pluses to them. I'm not just knocking it, but you cannot underestimate how much control brings to the table. And then obviously when you've got that, you need to know what to do with it all. But yeah, Sakai, more and more, and certainly with more viable fish, it's all being done indoors.
Is that the sort of overriding phrase for you about the concrete growing, the control of it? And
it is, it's everything. And that just Sakai is the same. They know, and they can. So I can if I've got a fish in front of me, I know I can with the utmost confidence and track record go, right, that's 20 odd cm now. By September, the minimum I'll have that fish at, say 45. Just an example, and I know I'll deliver it. People's seen that now time and time and time again when I've gone, I'll have that by 70 cm by the time we're done. I know, because I know what I can do with X stocking, X time period, whatever it is. And they're just the same. Just exactly the same, that you can plan all that because there's no variables, is there? It doesn't depend on the weather because we've got heating.
Yeah, sure.
We're not relying on 5 intense months. We can actually allocate a 12-month period and have a full program. So we will know the exact end result, give or take. It goes off. You just can't knock it. We're in control of light, generally. You can be, obviously, through shading systems and stuff like that. You've just got everything there, and it's just so much better. But really what it boils down to is you can feed the maximum food. I don't give a fuck what anybody says about anything else, what type of water, whatever it is you're on about. Food. And part of that whole formula, we're not going to go in depth to it, I've said once again, for me, part of that secret thing has been sake akari. Once again, because when you're talking 40 fish in 1,200 gallons of water, having to feed like that, I cannot allow, and bearing in mind that system as well, just for everyone out there, brush chamber, single bottom drain, brush chamber, 300 litres of K1, UV, one air pump, driving the fluid bed, spray bar, return.
Yeah, it's relatively, well, it's effective, but you know what I mean? It's achievable, isn't it?
There's no drum, there's nothing.
It's someone's garage, really, isn't it? That you could fit that sort of footprint into.
You know, so it's, and I just couldn't, if that waste, the production of waste from that excessive feeding just went that little bit too much, that would affect the end results massively. You know, that's why I say the benefits of it might not be noticed by most hobbyists because they're probably keeping 10 fish in that amount of water.
Yeah, sure.
So a shitty food, you'll get away with it more, certainly if you're not feeding them levels, but I cannot. And to my mind, when something's performing that well at this elite high-end level, you filter that down, the more you can reduce that stocking level, you're just going to keep the whole conditions and environment even better and better and better. And away you go.
Do you think there's a bit of a stigma attached to it? And what you're doing?
Yeah, I think so. I think there's some sort of
asking that sincerely.
Yeah, no, I've heard stuff from kind of higher ends of hobbyists. I don't really know what to call them, to be honest with you.
Sure.
But yeah, snobbery, the snobby groups, let's call it, and just I think elite through some of the batches of fish that I bought, because it's these bulk batches. That's not my fault that they don't understand how purchasing in Japan works.
Yeah, sure.
You know, and also that actually I'm doing no different to any other breeder.
Yeah.
The breeder has a huge spawning and filters it down and prices the fish accordingly at the end of it. So, I forgive all them muppets for that anyway. And
it's very gracious of you.
Yeah. But then the raising, it's no different, but it's not in Japan. I get the allure of it being in Japan.
But if you were to actually look at it from a transaction, I know I don't like doing it, you don't like doing that because you lose the feel and the passion and the love for it. Yeah. But purely from a transactional point of view, concrete raising has far less risk associated with it.
Yeah, I'm popping it. It's through the obsession because I've seen people grow fish over here, and they end up looking like they don't look like Japanese fish at the end of it. Yeah. Because they've used a shit food and it's blown the body lines to pieces, or they've not got the temperature right and fed a shit food and you've just blown the bellies out. Yeah. Or, they've grown them in the dark. They've grown the fish but not worried about the colour. One huge thing that sets Japanese koi apart from all of us in the world is the quality of the pigmentation, and keeping that. So there's all these elements together. But yeah, the end result is there now. It can't be denied. More and more of my closer friends in Japan are seeing it. They're blown away by it, but I don't feel like I've got out to prove. Bottom line is, I'm happy, and I know what I'm doing is the level where I want it to be. And that obsession, people will never get their head around it or understand what an obsession is, to be honest, and being able to deliver them results. And now it's just a case of bringing up size-wise. Sakai are breaking the boundaries and going 60 plus on this side. I know I can do it now because we've done 57, 58 this year with Nisai with the same body volume, colour condition, all the rest. All it's a case is manipulating stocking levels.
Scaling, yeah.
That's it. The rest of it's all done. And I know, again, like I say, if I can get oxygen worked on harder, that would potentially, step things up another level again. But all that would actually do is allow me to keep a higher stocking level. Wouldn't really change anything else. I'd be able to keep more fish in a pond and still get the raising. So yeah, you're right, but stigma, don't really give a shit.
No, fair enough.
I'm happy with it.
Yeah. Well, mate,
and when the peers and the guys I truly respect, when I get the respect back from them, that's
I see your face grinning like a Cheshire cat, and rightly so. Like I say, it pains me to pat you on the back, But no, the results at the farm are spectacular.
In all seriousness, this is where, right, in the case of NND, forget that Fujo is my Japanese dad, really, but forget that. I still remember the day, I'm actually getting goosebumps a minute, the second, third trip with him, and I'm like, Fujo, I want to buy your best Nisai. Absolutely not. No, sorry, sold out. No, sorry, sold out. I'm like, fucking hell, this is pissing me off, this. So obviously I'm like, I'm young, I don't quite process it. And then he actually pulled me aside at one point and went, Ricky, that best Nisai means so much to him and potentially his reputation. I don't know what you can do with that fish.
Yeah.
Or have you got the customer that then can have that fish and raise it and actually add some value back to his brand? Obviously, he was an independent breeder at this point. And then the penny dropped. So over the years, eventually, over the years it came, but to be in a position where on that last trip, obviously this NND Kohaku, even we're 20 odd years in, he's still not really seen too much of what I've been doing over here. So then now to be in a position where he's like, right, take these. And I knew I was being tested. It's like, right, see what you can do. So to feed that back and then him just be his head blown out of the water. I mean, literally, he's saying to me, I've just sent this to all NND staff. So no doubt when I go, I'll be sitting down and having to give them all a lesson. It'll be hilarious. But that to me, it's how this opens up doors. It's legitimate, Then I've been allowed, as a result of these things, being allowed that opportunity with those DK Shiro.
Access
to Selecture his Tatigo. And that's not the thing. They don't need the money. It weren't a financial transaction, but he knows I'm going to take them. He knows what it means to me to be able to have such a batch of fish to kind of play around with, if you like, but then to actually deliver on it, and then again show people now through the channels and mechanisms as well what can be done with their lineage and what we can do. It's awesome. And that reputational bit just means everything to me.
Fair play. I've enjoyed this topic. Hopefully
quite good,
hopefully
there's just so much to it, but I think probably just some good consumer advice for anybody at home. Everything I do is achievable for everybody listening to this podcast if it's something you want to do. You don't need all the fancy gadgets and gizmos. Yes, you need the knowledge and experience because you need to know where that line is. It's quite easy to overstep it. One way, obviously, is learning the hard way, which isn't a great way to do it. But with those basic setups, you get the heat, you get the food, decent fish, you'll grow them. You get your auto feeder. But one of the big things, if you are into doing it, and this is where growing services can come in really handy, is if you haven't got that, more than one pond is massively beneficial in your hobby setup. So you'd have your main pond, for example, that would possibly house your Nisai and older, let's say, because separation's a huge thing in fish raising. And this is even down to size separation. In Tosai, a 5 cm variation, really, bottom end to top end. We in a mixed pond, you're going to struggle with that because this is about extracting every millimetre, really. And straight away, you've got you put that 20 cm Tosai in a pond where it's Nisai, Sanzai and above, it's going to miss out.
Yeah,
it will still grow, but you aren't going to achieve to max it out. Separation comes down to even variety separation, so they could be on different diets, i.e., colour food for Gosanki, no colour food for Shirotsori, all these type of things, which is hard when you're a hobbyist because at best, if you're really lucky, you might have 2 ponds. But there you could separate age. Tosai raising pond and your main pond. And the fish, your good ones you raise can then at Nisai go in. Because at that, the size separation from Nisai onwards, it's not as much. The impact's not as big. But this is where kind of like the services I'm developing really coming well for people, because I think the likes of the Sakai stuff that I've been selling from the auctions that were, as you said, 12, 14 cm, they're valuable fish, they're expensive fish. What the fuck can most hobbyists do with them? Because if you're not got the heating for one, which we know is a big expense, you're in trouble because you ain't going to get the most out of it. If it's going in a pond with Nisai and older, you're going to be working against it. If you just generally don't have the confidence, and if you want to have those type of fish but you haven't got the confidence to raise it, it holds you back. So hence why I've been looking to develop it, and it's obviously open up access to it a bit more now. But if you are interested in that stuff more, the development of a second pond in your hobby will make a huge difference for you. Because just being able to raise toe size separately from everything else will help you get maximum benefit from them, basically. So one to bear in mind, but I know it's hard. Because like I say, I can be separating stuff out all the time. Fish even in batches that I think that's not going to make it in jumbo raising, but it could be a really strong 40 cm fish. Isolate them, shearers away from go sankey. You name it, Deutz fish, or even away from go sankey, because Deutz fish I might want to feed 100% colour food in height of summer, whereas normal go sankey just don't need it. All this stuff is about getting the absolute best out of all them. And that's where, again, certain breeders come in an advantage, like Narita and farms like that, because they've got the expanse of facilities to be able to do it all and get the most out of those valuable fish. So, interesting one.
Deeper topic than perhaps many would give it credit. But yeah, enjoyed this. And hopefully people take some information away. And as always, sort of apply it in the field. If you've got any questions, then always drop us a message or in the comments, and we'll do our best to get back to you. But for this one, I think that's it. Good chat, mate, and I'll see you in the next one.
See you, everyone.